Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the League of Inches podcast. It's our preview series once again. So, obviously, for trial week 2, we've seen pretty much all the teams come back now. Obviously, Penrith missed out this week with that bye, but then we got to see them play a little bit last week. So, we've seen every single team now. Unfortunately, we're recording this right now while the Dragons versus Roosters game is on. So, unfortunately, we don't have any talking points for that game. It'll be sort of on in the background, I'm sure. We'll be both keeping a little bit of an eye on things, but we won't be able to say too much on it. And also the game beforehand, the Dogs versus Tigers, just because I was doing a lot of prep for this show, I didn't get to watch too much. So just a heads up, we won't say much about both of those games. That'll probably be more on the Tuesday show. We might touch on any big talking points for that. But we'll cover the rest of the games. We'll go into that, myself and Jake, once again. As well, tonight is draft night for a lot of for our big draft comp. 5 divisions strong. It's Div 1 tonight, which does feature a number of our Supercoach boys in that draft, or in that league, sorry. So we will just be cutting this episode a little bit short because I will be running very, very close to the draft kickoff, which I don't want to have my first pick. I'm pick 6 out of a 12-man league. I do not want to get auto picks first round at all. So we'll make sure this one isn't a very long one, hopefully about the 30, 40-minute range. So I have time to quickly just go to the toilet, relax, take a breath, and then get into draft. So I'm really keen for that. Finally, you've seen the posts tonight. We got to check out the Velveteen Rabbit today, myself and Trav. Awesome location. We've literally got the entire downstairs area, which is 3 rooms, its own private bar. Everything is booked out for us exclusively on that Saturday, so 11 to 2. Huge area. Really keen to get into it. It's going to have some of the old school classics being played. We've already requested that. So it's going to be a great morning/afternoon to get ready to rip and tear for that Saturday. I'm keen to give more tickets away. I know it's been a week or two. We're just holding off. But tonight's the night. If you are listening, mate, do me a favor. Go and give us a rating on whichever platform you listen to the podcast on. If you can send the page proof of that, the first one that does that for us will get 2 tickets to that Magic Round event. So a double pass, and it's all yours. So all you have to do, send me proof that you've given us a rating on those on a platform that you listen to, and then you will secure your tickets there. Jakey boy, welcome, mate. Trials, we've got to see a lot more teams on the weekend play, which was a bit exciting. The first weekend of full-on league has been big smack bang in your face. How's things, mate?
Yeah, good. Yeah, no, it's been very good to watch, actually. It's been very enjoyable. Not only do we get to see sort of the first round of trials for some teams, but also we got to see the sort of the better, well, I say better, but like they're sort of more full-strength sides for the Sharks-Raiders game. So that was good. Which I really enjoyed that game. Obviously, it sort of turned out a bit with more of a shellacking than probably all of us expected it to. But yeah, no, it's been really, really good. Enjoying the footy. It's back, baby. Let's go.
So first thing we're going to tackle, and is obviously we've done a bit of a tongue-in-cheek. I won't say we, I said me. I did a bit of a tongue-in-cheek post with this. You concede 50, you can't win the comp. Guys, I know a lot of Cowboys fans were going off their nut. It's a joke. It's tongue-in-cheek. We know it doesn't count. With the rules as such, but it's still not ideal. I don't care what sort of time of year it is. You don't want to be conceding 50, but just how concerned should you be, Jake, if your team is coming off the back of a smashing on the weekend and not looking great? It's very, very early. I know trial week 1 for a lot of these teams, but again, I say you don't want to be getting a 50-point slacking next to your name straight away.
It's a tough one. I think it depends on how many NRL players you have in your side. Like some teams decided to put a few more in to their side than others, and so if you only had like a handful, 4 or 5 in there, and they sort of, no team wants to get flogged. I know that you want to have faith in your Reggies to come up and do that job and stuff like that, but I can't think of any examples specifically without looking into team lists. But I feel like there was a few teams there where they had more NRL players in than others. In there kind of thing, but I wouldn't say you have to be worried. Look, it's still a trial after all. It's for a lot of the teams was the first trial. For the Raiders Sharks one, it's a bit interesting. Maybe probably a little bit more like I know there was a few players that got taken off and stuff like that. pretty early in that game, but 40 to 12 or 40 to 10, still not what you want to see out of the fact that they had a pretty strong side on that field. But I'm going to say none of the teams that got pumped this week should be worried, but if it happens again next week, maybe be a bit more concerned.
Yeah, well, there is a couple of points where we'll probably dig a bit deeper into it on this episode, but just to sort of what I'm thinking about straight away, I know what you mentioned. It is dry, but for mine, thinking back to it, the Dolphins weren't that strong. Like, I don't think they were that strong of a line. I know the Cowboys weren't really either, but it's more, if anything, probably a concern for depth, especially for those sorts of teams, knowing that their next line under, if some of these stars do get injured or some of their first grade stars get injured, already you might look at it and go, oh, hang on, like that depth we thought was great isn't really what it was. But one big thing, and we will talk about this a little bit more, is the game today that we will be talking about, and that's the Broncos Titans. And the Titans side that they ran out with wasn't the worst. Like, there was a number of players there that should be in their first team come round one, and round two, because we got the bye in round one. But that was for my nuts, a fairly worrying, because what's the worry there? And again, we'll talk about it a bit more down the track, but that defense that they were doing, a lot of shirt grabbing, that's all attitude. And that's what we've been talking about so much with the Titans this preseason. And first go at things hasn't been great. But you mentioned the first game, and that was the Raiders-Sharks game. It was a weird game because I actually went away from that. And I know a lot of people going, oh, Raiders are shit, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't see that at all, because what I seen was the first 20, 25 minutes when they actually had their better strength side on. They got the Weeks, the Fogartys and stuff. They were matching it with the Sharks, and actually looks a better team. I know it took the Sharks a while to maybe get into the rhythm, and once they did, they were just ridiculous. But you can probably argue as well, like, again, that was when the Raiders took off a lot of their stars, and the Sharkies were basically running on a freeway where at the start of the game, when there was that real bash and barge sort of game, the Raiders stood up, and not just stood up. That I was really, really impressed by them. And what about your thoughts? What were you thinking that game was happening?
Well, yeah, no, I definitely agree in the sense that I think if that was an NRL game, and obviously they're not taking off players like midway through the game, or very early, I should say, through the game, like that, it's going to be a completely different one. And one person I have to just highlight straight away is actually one person who I never thought I'd say this for, because I didn't think he was any good when he was at Manly, but KO Weeks. Whoa, fullback is your role, mate. Keep him there. What is that? Like, that is that breakaway try he scored from deep in their area. Oh, mate, That was incredible. That was just a work of art. And I think I have to apologize because I doubted him a lot at that fullback role. But yeah, in terms of the Sharks, I think, yes, they could have grinded their way in a regular game. But again, there was a lot of players that came off. Weeks was one of them, and I think Fogarty was as well. Came off pretty quickly in that game. So it's, again, hard until you're seeing a proper game to sort of judge, say that the Raiders were worse. For the first, I want to say 20, 30 minutes, it was very close. Like, it wasn't.
Yeah. And it looked like, it really did look like the Raiders were the better side at that time. And again, the Sharks are probably getting into the thing and not here to criticize that at all. And they end up going way over the top, and their big gun stepped off and things like that. But just, I think more so the big talking point is the Raiders. And also the fact you mentioned Weeks, he was absolutely sensational. For mine, that was the game that made sure he cemented that number 1 jersey as his own, which rightly so. So Chevy Stewart still in the background. For mine, even in the first 2 trials, hasn't really set the world on fire with any chances he's got either. Mm-hmm. So he's not really helping his case moving forward, and Weeks just absolutely shone. But the other guy and you mentioned him, Fogarty, it's so vital for me this year, and it's so obvious how important he is to this side. And they are a completely different team when Fogarty's there. I know they've got Ethan Sanders now, and he might make a bit of a difference if they are to lose Fogarty for any amount of time, but he's not a Fogarty. Fogarty is something different to this team, and it's so I'm so impressed watching him, and I just keep my stocks on Fogarty are rising more and more. Like, I'm actually starting to think he's in the top 6 or 7 halfbacks in the game, and that's something that I probably never would have thought about for Fogarty. I don't think a lot of people out there think about that with Fogarty, but he's got class written all over him.
Yeah, he's got a bit of a surprising kicking game too. Like,
Yeah.
he's not a person who I ever
On
thought
boot.
had that incredible kicking game, but yeah, he's got a big boot. Like when he wants to, he can put in some scary, like the balls where the ball's turning in, also like physically turning in the air, and it's just scary as you don't ever want to be under one of them. But not only that is his decision making feels like it's improved. Like when he was at Titans first, wasn't he? Before that,
Yeah, he was.
yeah. See, like you never noticed him. He just didn't seem to. He definitely didn't set the world on fire. And when he came to Raiders, you could just see the difference he made was just straight away. Obviously, last year we're talking about, but then he got injured and he sort of came back. And if he hadn't been injured last year, I reckon they could have gone way further than they did.
Yeah,
like, I think they would have pushed much harder than they did.
Weirdly, there was a bit of whispers around, I think, last week about Raiders potentially maybe shopping him around or happy to let him go. Honestly, you got rocks in your head, Raiders. Like, I don't think it's any more clear that you need him in your team. If anything, I'd be offering him an extension at the moment. I know you just signed Ethan, but goodness me, like, while Fogarty's playing like this, I'd be keeping him and I'd be giving him a bit more of an extension and building that side around. And if anything, maybe move Strange into the centers. I've been a bit of a fan of that for a while, and maybe have Sanders as that sort of 5/8 role and have him just, I don't know, but Fogarty for mine is becoming like sort of a Raiders identity. And without him and probably Tarpany, I'm very worried about what that team would actually produce on a week-to-week basis. So, but yeah, shout out to Fogs.
I was going to say, that's the question I sort of had for you. If he does go down, can you see them still pushing for the 8? Let's just say. I know it's early days, and I know you'd have to assume, but no chance.
No, I know a lot of people are writing the Raiders off. I'm not. I'm not going to say I'm high on the Raiders, but what I think of the Raiders is they'll be mid-pack the whole year. And if they're given a chance, they're given a sniff, I reckon I would not be surprised if by finals they're 7th or 8th. And people are going, what? And they give 6th or 5th, whoever they verse, they give them a real run for their money first week of finals, because it's just one of those teams where that arm wrestle, I just feel like in that class of that kicking game of Fogarty, knowing what you're going to get from people like Tarpany and Hudson Young, those sorts of players are going to be huge. I'm just really interested to see how this season goes. I don't think they're going to be easy beats by any stretch of the imagination. You just can't be with that forward pack. That forward pack's always going to be in battles no matter what. So it's got to be probably a lot of pressure on their back line, if anything. There's probably a couple of little question marks there. But again, we've gone through that in our sort of season preview. But it's, yeah, I think if Fogarty's injured for any longer than 6 weeks, I don't think they'll make the finals. That's how crucial he is to them.
They are a team that I would say I've never thought has the potential to be that exciting. Like, they're a team I don't usually consider an exciting team to watch. This year, that changes. This year, I feel that they have that potential to be more exciting, and especially if, and I agree with your point here, Ethan Sanders moves up as in that other half with Fogarty. I agree with that, because Strange, to be honest with you, the way he runs and the way he, like, how driven he is and the way he defends, he could easily play in the centers, and he's obviously got the ball skills. So why wouldn't you? I assume they're not going to, Sticky's not going to change it last second to do that if they haven't been training it, obviously. But if it's not working in the season, that's something we could see for sure.
Yeah, if they started the trial that game as that combination, I probably would have thought they were changing things. But because they stuck Strange there to start that game, I think that's how they'll start the year. But they've definitely got some options now, which probably is a good thing for the Raiders, and keeps Strange on his toes and keeps the outside backs on their toes, knowing full well that Strange can simply go into that back line and push one of them out if they're underperforming. Next up, obviously, I had a couple of messages because a lot of you have been loving these trial notes that we have been doing for every game so far. It takes a little bit. I won't lie about that, but I'm glad you're all appreciating it. Yes, we missed one. We did miss the Cowboys and the Dolphins game, and obviously that was a smashing. I want to be honest, I had a massive work week. I fell asleep, and it was probably to do with the actual quality of the game, and Cowboys weren't there. Obviously, we all know that. The Dolphins looked quite good. From the early parts that I did watch, I thought that their Averillo looks like he's locked in that 5/8 spot now. Had a couple of good touches, and from what I've been told post that and a couple of the highlights I did watch, he had his hand over a couple of the tries, which was good to see. But apart from that, can't comment much of that game just purely because of the fact I didn't watch it. Jake, did you get a chance to catch that at all? Was the Cowboys as bad as it seems, and was the Dolphins as good as it seems? Even though when I looked at it on paper, it didn't look like the Dolphins had that good of a team. It didn't look like it was going to be that obvious of a scoreline.
No, look, if I'm being honest with you, I actually didn't get a chance to catch that one either. I had a bit of a busy one on this weekend, but I did look at their team list, if I can just comment on sort of that side of things. And you are right. Like, I would say they both were basically reserve grade, mostly reserve grade sort of sides. It isn't as if, like, if you look at it, there's only, come on, where are they? It was actually what I found was interesting that they played Kurt Donahue at fullback. He said he'd never played fullback before, and they played him at fullback, which was interesting.
Let's chuck it. It's a trial. Chuck him.
Yeah, chuck him there. Put him around there. He'll be right. Like, you look at the Cowboys halves, and I've never heard of these guys before. There was Jarrett Sublu and Zach Herdagan. Never heard of those guys before. Whereas, like, the Dolphins, they had Jake Averillo. Like you said, they're going to trial him sort of for that spot in the actual in the season. And Sean O'Sullivan, who I know a lot of people aren't that hot on, but I think he's quite good. And obviously he did a fair bit when he was at the Panthers, and he's come out of a good system, and I still think he's quite a good player. But other than that, when you really look through it, both teams were basically reserve grade sides. Like, both sides didn't have a lot of players who they're going to really sort of start in the game. There was Cohen Hess over at the Cowboys, and Carl Lawton, and Thomas McKaylee. But yeah, I'm not a Jackson Paulo, but that's it. There's 4, I think. So yeah, I think it was basically reserve grade on reserve grade. You can't really take heaps from it, other than, like you said earlier, like that depth. Do they have any depth if someone goes down? But I wouldn't be too worried about it. Like, their two best like halves weren't in there. They'll be there next week. We'll see how they go then. And if they do get flogged, then they have something to worry about.
Yeah, no, 100%. If anything, it just probably shows the Dolphins have some pretty good depth issues. So don't go running them off too quickly. Again, people have them as their wooden spoon contenders. I don't know about that for the Dolphins this year, but look, one thing it looks like, if they do have a couple of injuries, they might be able to. They're probably in their best spot so far since being in the competition to cover those injuries. Moving over to the Eels clash. Obviously, both Eels fans. I'm making a rule for this podcast. We have bashed the Knights a hell of a lot so far to start the year. So we're not going to talk about them. We are not going to talk about them tonight because I'm going to give the Knights fans a layoff. I'm going to be nice to them for once. We've got our ladder previews coming up on Tuesday nights. So we'll talk a little bit more about them then for sure. For this episode, just to make sure we're not going too long, we will steer clear. It's an Adam O'Brien free zone and a Newcastle Knight free zone. So what I will say with the Eels is there's probably the big talking point I want to get to is the fullback duel. Now, for Parramatta and Parramatta fans, it's really exciting because I don't think we've had 2 young fullbacks that are genuinely ready for first grade before, pushing each other like what we're seeing at the moment. And to lose one of the most inspirational sort of captains or leaders we've had at that club for a hell of a long time in Gutho, and replacing that with this exciting, speedy, agility, skillful sort of fullbacks is really exciting. And to know that looking at what I watched on the weekend, I legit think it's up in the air still. Like, I know everyone's putting Iongi in there, but as soon as he went off and Papali'i went on, we didn't lose anything. If anything, the Eels actually went to another level. And I know the Knights, because they weren't happy, they kept some of their players on for a bit longer, some of their more first grade quality players. So it was probably just shows you the quality that's there. And yeah, it's a trial, not getting too excited at all, but I think it's an interesting battle. It's a duel. Who do you think is looking like they're going to be getting that number 1 spot, Jake?
I think Iongi is going to get it to kick it off because I think that's why we signed him. And I think when we did, we kind of said, like, look, we're signing you to get this. You're going to get our spot to start off with. Like, you're replacing Gutherson. But one thing I've sort of said during the preseason is I love healthy competition for a spot. I think it is so important in a team that it does not get stagnant and that there's 2. And these guys are really fighting it out. Like, it could go neck and neck, to be honest with you. The one thing I think it's unfair to say is, like, don't get me wrong, Josh Papali'i smashed it. Absolutely crushed his debut. I know it's not technically like his NRL debut, but, smashed the game that he played in. And when he came on, they looked fantastic. But also, Iongi got taken off very early. Like, he didn't get given that much time on the field. I know there's no stats at the moment.
Did a good try assist.
Yeah, that ball was incredible. But yeah, so they didn't actually show they don't have the stats for like the time they were on, but I don't think he was on. I don't think he was on for more than 20 minutes, maybe 25, and Josh Papali sort of played the rest of it. So I think it's easier to sort of comment on how well he did, because he did. He scored tries and he set him up and everything. He looked great, but he was also on for longer. He get more of an opportunity to demonstrate what he had, whereas Iongi didn't get as much time. Either way, I think I'm very happy. I'm very happy with either of them getting that spot. I've had a few people message me and say like, "Oh, I reckon Josh Papali should get that spot over Iongi. He looks better."
Joash.
And that's no. Well, actually, they keep saying Josh. The commentators keep saying Josh. I know it's spelled Joash, but I'm actually pretty sure everyone keeps saying Josh. And I know that he prefers Papali over Papali'i. So I'm saying Josh, and I'm hoping I'm not getting it wrong. I really am.
Reach out to us, Joash or Josh. Let us know what you want.
Yeah, someone please let us know that it's how it's pronounced. I swear the commentators were saying Josh. I understand it's Joash, but I'm just going to try to make sure I'm I lost my train of thought. But yeah, no. So he is an exciting player, and I think what he will bring is, again, that fight. Like, so basically, you get first crack at it, and you might get 2 or 3 weeks of grace period, I'd say. But if you're not performing, you've got this kid on your heels, like just chomping at the bit, wanting to get that start. And as an Eels fan, that is so exciting. That is something that we haven't had for a really long time. And obviously we didn't need to, because we had Gutho just crushing it at the back all the time. But it's exciting to have new possibilities of what could happen. I don't know. I'm very excited for that.
It definitely is. And I think it also means we're going to see the best of Iongi on a weekly basis, because that competition is so strong. And you look across probably the NRL, and apart from maybe at the Storm, where they got Pappy and Fa'alongo, where that's genuine competition, like we all know how good Fa'alongo can be, I feel like this could be one of the best sort of depth partnerships in the competition, where there's literally someone who, I reckon once we see a little bit more of Josh Papali, there's going to be teams out there that go, why did we not go after this bloke when he was available last year? He could easily be our sort of fullback and stuff like that. So when you have those sorts of players in your team, it's great. It's fantastic for depth, especially when you got another younger guy who's there at the spot. Just keep him on his toes. I think that's brilliant. He's not an experienced guy yet, so you're not going to have any real issues. They've both got to prove that they're worth. They're both new to the team as well. For me, I would go Iongi. I would go Joash on the bench for a 14 role. I think he can cover most spots in the back line. I think with just how he is and how much skillful he is, he could probably, at a pinch, do halves if needed during a game. I wouldn't start in there, but if it happened in a game and we needed to put someone there, I'd probably be confident and comfortable with doing that. And I'd probably even be comfortable putting him at hooker if Hands was to go down for whatever reason or needed a rest. But I think you, Jake, need to come in here, because I think this sort of segues into a point that you want to make, and you're going to put the handbrake on slightly where it comes to Papali to 14 and say, maybe there's someone else that has I'll put their hand up and gone, don't forget about me. And I thought it was Reid Marnie when I first looked at him.
He does look like him, doesn't he? I said that. Yeah, he looks just like him, but he actually plays like him a little bit too, I reckon. And that is young Riley Smith. He looked a fiend when he got onto the park. He just competed. He looked like hungry. Like, he looked like he just wanted to win that game, like it was the grand final. And that's something that I feel like, again, losing Clint Gutherson, where that is something that he did. He just wanted to win every game like it was a grand final at all times. He's just, fighting for every point, every scrap you can get. And you need a player like that. And there's no better place to sort of have a player like that than in hooker, I think, because they're the most involved in everything. Now, I want to clarify this by saying I definitely think that Brendan Hands deserves first crack. I heard he's been training the house down, and I quite like him in a hooker. But a lot of teams run that sort of 14 at hooker kind of role. And Riley Smith he put his hand up. He definitely announced himself on the day. That being said, I have a question for you regarding Papali, and that is, if he's on the 14 role, and let's say no one goes down in the game, what do you do with him then? Or is he just wasted on that bench role?
I actually reckon Jason Riles is at the point with this team where he will just say to him, there is literally nothing to lose. I feel like this year he will find a way to maybe even play him in like a loose 13 role. and just have that more mobile sort of pack for a 20, 25
Like a
minute
second
period.
fullback
And
almost.
yeah, similar. Imagine him and Iongi together on the field, like going around the forwards that can offload, like the Maddo, Junior if he's back to sort of the junior days, Hopgood if he ends up moving into that prop role, which I think he'll do in his second stint for the game. And that might be where you can see someone like Papali come into things. So obviously, yeah, it does depend. Like if it's a monster forward pack and there's a massive, obviously, battle in the middle, I would hesitate and just say, for now, let's just call your Jets. And if anything, there's also the possibility if Iongi, because let's just remember, he's fresh to this thing. After 60, if he's not looking fantastic and he's maybe a bit tired, fatigued, understandable, being he's quite a busy fullback as well. I would also say, you know what, come off. Papali, go on in. And for the last 20 minutes, have a fresh fullback ready to rip and tear. And I think that could be dangerous as well. So there's a few ways I would do it. And I think that could be a new way of maybe going about things. And that's what I've also said the Storm should do is Failongo for a long time now. And granted, Wishart came on in leaps and bounds last year and basically became a must pick when they were full strength. But yeah.
He's so versatile, you have to.
Yeah, you got to. Yeah. So I just think Papali, Riley Smith was great to watch. I think he's got definitely something in him. I feel like that's the reason why I personally wouldn't go for Reed Money if he is becoming available, because we've got that nice young kid in it at a stretch, and everyone knows I don't rate him. But if we ever need to get to a third hooker for whatever reason, we do have Lussick there as well, who he did come up with a nice play or two the other night against maybe the weaker opposition of the Knights, but still, at least he's got a bit of confidence. So that's that. The next game up I want to talk about would be the Warriors game. And a little point there to make, because I know we've been speaking very much around the Warriors and their fullback dilemmas. And we obviously seen Chans last week kill it there and played really good. And we said he's done himself no headaches whatsoever with that performance. I seen Tuapiki on the weekend have a blinder as well. That was sensational. And then I want to talk about RTS, who I thought was absolutely sensational on the wing, which I think everyone knows he can be, and no one's questioning that whatsoever. But it was just good to see him become that winger, become that sort of guy that we know he can eat the meters up at wing, still get just as involved, which I like the most. The Warriors found ways to make sure they include him throughout that game when he was on the field. And that probably would have been the biggest question mark for a lot of people out there was, okay, we know RTS can play the wing fine, and he did it with the Roosters. Awesome, he can finish, but you want him to be a bit more involved. And I think he did that. That balance was perfect on the weekend. So, if anything, I think it just solidifies he will be a winger, and I think that is extremely dangerous. I'd rather him on. I think he's more dangerous on the wing than he is at center for this Warriors team.
Well, straight into my Supercoach he went.
Yes.
Straight into my Supercoach team he went. As soon as I saw he was on the wing, and then I saw that he played a game like that, and I went, okay, he can stay there. That you're right though, in the sense that the biggest key factor, I suppose, that's scary is, can you get him involved? Because he needs to be involved. He needs his hands on the ball. We know what he can do. You know how dangerous he is with a broken field. Like, the guy's a freak. At the same time, in the centers, I think he was too forced to be rigid. Whereas I think, let's pretend that they're in the middle of the park or sort of more towards the right-hand side, and they need an extra man to come across to add to like a sweeping play across the field to the left. You just call him across, have some sort of call for it. And him coming across from the wing, you just get that extra number. Like, you're just getting an extra number in there. And that no extra number being Roger Tuivasa-Sheck is never a bad thing. The guy's an absolute – he's just a weapon. I don't know if you remember – well, you would remember, of course, the Roosters days when he was on the wing for them. And the guy just – he just carved it. I know he's gotten a bit on in age, but doesn't mean that he's got any less talent. Like, he can finish a try. We know what he can do when he has the ball. And the one thing that he was wasted at in centers is ball return off the kick. Like, he needs to be that person that if they're kicking the ball to, you don't want to be kicking to that side because you just got Roger Tuivasa-Sheck who's going to come in and just do everyone.
Yeah, no, I agree, and he's looking as good as ever and as fit as ever as well. So we talk about back in the day, but knowing how well he keeps his body, I don't think there's any issues at all and concerns around that. And I think the best thing that also provides is if they do say, let's say they choose Chans at fullback, and that means Tuapiki just has to bide his time at the start of the year. If he is to go down for whatever reason during a game, Chans, Roger can just quickly go back to fullback, and away they go. They don't really lose much at all, having that impact that Roger has got and can do. And the other thing for him is that it just continues to give them that little bit of leadership where I feel like that's been missing a lot for the Warriors, obviously with a couple of their departures end of the year with Johnson and Tohu. Just having RTS there on the wing, doing what he does, talking a lot. I think he can talk a lot more on the wing than at center where he's trying to make a few more defensive decisions. He'll be yapping. He'll be talking that whole time, helping the fullback out, things like that. So I think it's going to work perfectly. And I'm with you, Jay. We couldn't get any Supercoach guys to come in at the start, but that's your little Supercoach for this one. RTS is almost becoming a must in your team if he's becoming the winger at the Warriors. That is absolutely gold. Let's go to Manly. Now, I want to talk about Manly in a different – I know everyone out there always has this big question mark or that little star thingy, whatever you want to call it, next to Manly. They always say, they're a top 4 team or they're that good, but – and here comes the but. If Turbo goes down, they're done. I'm going to go out there now on record and say the Manly Seagulls are the best place they've ever been to cover a Turbo long-term injury. Touch wood, it doesn't happen. But if he is, Lehigh Hopewadi is quickly turning into an absolute gun. I know it was only a trial. I know it wasn't the best of, I guess, opposition for South. They did have a number of their stars rested all playing in the All-Stars game, which we will quickly touch on as well at the end. But his touches and just where he is, and he's just growing. He's only been in the game for a year, and he looks like, and when he's playing, he's been in the game for 5 years. So having him there, they've also got Garrick as well. Their backline is still stacked. They've got a lot of backline depth this year. I just think they're the best. Cola. Oh, yeah, Cola. Everyone. They're just the best I think they've ever been to replace a Turbo. And obviously, Turbo is a Turbo. We're not going to sit here and say Leo Hopewadi is Turbo, but he makes that gap and that fall down so much smaller than I think it's ever been. And that's a dangerous thing now for Manly.
Yeah, well, because what it always used to sort of be was like, oh, he goes down, there's Garrick to fullback. And Garrick did a good job for a while, but it was never you miss his quality on the edge then. Like you have him go to the back and he's doing great. Yeah, there was always something that you sort of missed. Now they've got Cola roughly at a 14, if not reserve grade kind of level, but the guy is still an absolute freak of a player. You know, you can slot him if you decided to slot him at fullback to keep Lehigh the way he's been playing, like if he's been playing really well in the centers, whatever, you keep that. If not, the preference would be Lehigh to there, Cola to the centers, and then you just sort of go on like that. Like that just makes the most sense to me. And then you get to keep Garrick where he was. You get to keep the whole team sort of like nothing. You don't skip a beat. They shouldn't be skipping a beat if Turbo does go down. It sucks, but at like you said, like they've got young players now that are electric and can play those positions. That means that it shouldn't throw them off too much, to be honest.
No, I absolutely agree. And it seems like he doesn't really get affected by any pressure in that as well. And he's chilled. He just goes about his business. He knows what he's good at, does it, continues to improve on the areas that he should be improving on. It feels like his size, he should be quite poor defensively, but I've never once noticed it where he just makes him. He always does it. He's never getting really overrun. He doesn't
just make him. He hits people, man. Like he is someone you wouldn't want to run at, and you would not expect it.
No, he could potentially be the best Hopewadi we've seen as well. So I'll go out and say that one as well. That could be a huge call in itself. So
there's been a lot, but it's a fierce competition. There's been a lot of Hopewadis. It's a fierce call.
And there's more coming by the sound of things. So, they won't stop. They won't stop. But, yeah, I think let us know in the comments or let us know, message the page, if you do think Manly's in the best place I think they've ever been when it comes to replacing Turbo. If, unfortunately, we feel like the inevitable, but I don't want to say that because I think we spoke last year. Yeah, he missed a few weeks, but it wasn't anywhere near as much as what I think people thought. So we'll see what happens. And I just think it makes Manly even more dangerous, which is very scary because I rate them very much up there for this competition this year. The last point to wrap up the games on the weekend from an NRL point of view would be the Titans. We spoke about it at the start of the episode. We didn't want to get too in deep. Here we are now. We have spoken a number of times. We spoke about the preview and stuff and talking about the identity and what they stand for and things like that. Now, no doubt we'll probably get a couple of messages after this and saying it was a trial. Don't read too much, blah, blah, blah. Now, I think there's certain teams out there when it comes to trials, it's not just a trial. It needs to be something else. And it looked like from the team that they named, the amount of actual good quality round one players that had named, especially in that forward pack, they were taking this one a bit more seriously and they wanted to sort of maybe not necessarily make a statement to the competition. I wouldn't go that far, but at least say something to maybe themselves and be like, yes, this is where we're at type thing. And I don't know what Des is thinking. I think today was his birthday as well. So happy birthday, Des.
Happy birthday,
he must be going home going, I know it's a trial. I don't want to read too much into this, but goodness me, have we just got ourselves a hell of a... And he's probably thinking, thank God we've got an extra week. We're not playing round one, so I can smash these boys a bit more harder, which no doubt he'll do because the biggest worry was defense. That's attitude. That's the thing we keep saying is our biggest worry about the Titans. On paper, and we continue that every year, on paper, they've got the team. They've got a team that should challenge for the top 8 consistently. That was so concerning. That was seriously concerning today.
At the beginning of this podcast, I sort of said there were some teams that played a lot of their mainstay players and some teams that didn't. This is one that you should be concerned. They had AJ Brimson in there and Kieran Foran in their halves, who are two of their halves. I think Kieran is going to play a 14 role, but it doesn't really matter. Like if you're going to have AJ in your halves, he's got to be able to take control. They had Jojo Fafita, they had Philip Sami, they had Fodawaka, Verrills, Jolliffe, Fafita, Fermor, Randall. Like you're listing off first grade names here, and to get 50 put on them by a team, don't get me wrong, that also had a fair few of their sort of starting players. They had Billy Walters playing in the 6, Jock Madden, Jensen, Jakes, Takura. They did. They had a. Did he? Yeah, I didn't really focus on him too much, but. They did have a strong side as well. I'm not going to deny that, but I'm just saying like they both did. So it shouldn't have been, the difference shouldn't have been what it is. It's not like it was reserve grade on first grade. It was, two strong sides going against each other. Well, supposedly strong, I should say. And then you get a 50-12. Like that's, I don't know, because I had high hopes. I shouldn't say it like it's over. It's not as if the season's actually kicked off or anything like that.
Done. At 50 points, they're done.
Put a line through them, season's over. But the Titans are somebody who I considered like a big. I haven't actually got that down, and you'll see my sort of season pre-list. I'm not going to give it away, but not my season, the team list, the ladder predictor. That's it. I'm not going to give it away, but in my head they're going to do better. But like I haven't got them there because I just can't convince myself that they're going to do it attitude-wise, like you said. Like it's. The squad should be winning games, especially the forward pack. And they're missing Tino, and they're missing RCG, but their two forwards aren't going to fix a 50-12 loss. That's not changing that loss. So I don't even know what to say. Like, look, what's their coach's name? I've lost it in my head for a second.
Des Hasler.
Yeah, I want to say Tuvey. Des, he's got a lot of work to do. And he knows that. He's got to know that.
And the other thing is with this trial, it's a local derby. You're versing big brother versus little brother. And I don't care whatever time of year that is, you're versing that opposition. You don't want to put in that sort of performance. You always want to just be in the back of your mind. You're thinking, you know what? I know this is a trial, but I want to make sure I give these guys a bit, and I don't want to give them a leg up and stuff like that. And that's the performance you put in. If it was my team, I'd be worried. I'd be saying that. That's not what you want. We said at the start of the podcast, it's not season over. That stat obviously doesn't matter, but you just don't want to be starting the year like this, especially when you're coming off a season like the Titans have. We've had so many question marks still. I'm still asking that question if that Des and the Titans mix is the right one. I feel like it's sort of a relationship that's going to continue to butt heads the whole time. And and you mentioned the foreign thing. It's like, once again, Brimson in the halves for mine didn't work today, and he's not that organising half.
Didn't they try?
From more reports, he's going to halfback. He's going to halfback next year, this season, and Foran, as you said, is either on the bench or heaven bid not in his team. And I just think that he's crazy.
Did they try Brimson in the halves last year? I know they tried him in the centers, but they put him in the halves. I'm fairly certain they did, and it didn't work. Like,
I think right at the
I just
start
don't
they may
understand.
have.
Yeah, I thought they I know they tried him in the centers. And you kind of made this point a little while ago, and I'm just going to quickly bring this up. Is he becoming a burden? It feels like he is, because it feels like they on the money he's on, they're trying to force him into the side, but he's not playing in his preferred position. So what do you do?
I feel like in a way he is, because for mine, if I'm the Titans and the money that reportedly Brimson's on, I think it's around the 800 mark or something. I think I've heard that number tossed around a couple of times. If that is the figure that we're talking about, or give and take, let's say 100K of either side, it's sort of like you want a player to come in and you want to throw the kitchen sink at someone like a Munster if he comes up out of contract. You want to look at maybe a Grant coming up in the next couple of years. Like, I'm talking about someone who can come in and everyone will stop and think, holy shit, I've got him now in my team and I do not want to let him down whatsoever. I know he'll consistently be at this level. I need to make sure no matter what I'm doing every week is about that performance on the game at that on that day, and that's what I hold myself to. Because you look at the Titans, and you need, like, yes, Tino, Fafita, things like, they got players there that have a lot of respect. And Tino, I think, I feel a bit for him at times when he's playing in this Titans team and he's saying some of the big statements he says into the media, like, I want to win a competition here. I love this area, things like that, because I just still feel like a lot of this playing group don't have the same feelings. And that could be harsh and I could be way off. And it just feels like from every time we get to watch them play, it's just, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's there. It's not working. And I want it to work. The Gold Coast area is huge, especially junior league. It's massive. It's such a good competition here. I'll get to watch some of the younger kids and that run around, and it's so much talent coming through. And you just keep thinking to yourself, just hold on here at the moment, because the next 5 or 10 years will be huge in this area. And the Titans should be one of the best teams in the competition. But yeah, the Brimson one is a huge headache. I don't like it. I think it's just becoming an annoyance for him more than anything. And it feels like they're forcing themselves to pick him and play him in a position to warrant the price tag, which I don't think you should ever get yourself into as a club.
No, I definitely think they're in a tough spot in terms of that. But yeah, in terms of their season, I suppose we have to give them the benefit of the doubt until the actual season starts. It is just a trial. Like I said earlier, I'm not going to put too much weight onto it, but with the squad that they had, they should have put up more of a fight is all I'm saying.
No, definitely agree with you there. Before we go, let's touch on the All-Stars game, obviously, last night, both the men's and the women's game. So shout out to the Indigenous ladies who got it done right on the buzzer. Jeez, it was a cruel blow because that was one almighty game. And then it was the Maori All-Stars as well. Sorry, I can't roll my R's, guys, so don't grill me too much. I literally just can't. Who won it for the men's. Shout out, because this concept has always had its doubters and things like that, and probably more so for the quality of football that we get and the amount of stars that are rested, things like that. I wanted to say a huge shout out to both teams for both games, both the men and the women, who brought their A game. Looks like they've been training together for years. It feels like there was an actual NRL team out there, because the quality was right up there. It was a great spectacle. It was a great year for both games, as I keep saying. I wish the women's game ended in a draw in a way, because it was such a good game and both teams deserved to get something out of that one. But yeah, I was really happy watching. I was really pumped for it. Obviously, for me, I don't have a team that I support in it for that concept, but I just love watching it and seeing some of those young guys sometimes step up. You go, oh, wow, look at him, ready to go. But some of the experienced campaigners I thought really stood up and made it matter and count. And I was just, as I said, I was really happy with the concept, really glad that it went ahead. I'm really glad that they got to do what they did. Loved it at Combank as well. I think Combank helped it become a bit more, it echoes a bit, a lot more atmosphere, the closer to the game. They need to keep it at those sorts of venues for this sort of thing, because I think that was brilliant.
I really enjoyed that game last night. I thought it was what it was lacking in, I suppose, polish. It made up for in passion. Like, you could just tell both teams just did not want to lose that game.
I love that.
And that's what you want. Like, you know what? I don't mind seeing a team, make a few mistakes if they're playing like they want to win and they're playing like trying their best to sort of make something happen all the time. And look, I'll say this: it was an interesting game in the sense that I'm wondering if the Knights had something to do with the fact that Kalen Ponga got taken off. He was off for a large period of that back end of that game, but he wasn't injured or anything. He was just taken off. And they had what's his name?
Heaney.
Yeah, they had Keeney playing there. And don't get me wrong, Keanu Keeney's an absolute weapon. So I'm not bagging him out or anything like that. He had some great, absolutely. He had some great touches. Had some great runs and stuff like that.
I think that was the Knights mentioned. I want Ponga to only be playing 40 odd minutes or something. I think that's what it was. So
yeah, which I guess is fair enough. In the sense, I suppose it's fair enough in the sense that like they don't even get injured, but at the same time, like if that was one where the game was on the line and you want Ponga out there, like you want your best fullback possible out there, and obviously he is that. And it is what it is. It went down to the wire. Like you couldn't take your eyes off it. Towards the end of the game there, like it just looked like it was going to break apart. And the Indigenous team just kept coming at them in that last 5 minutes. They just couldn't quite crack them, but good game. One big sort of talking point I have from there, I suppose, is one thing that you've mentioned a bit at the Knights is it's a bit different for Connor Watson doing full 80 sort of consistently and whatnot throughout an entire game for the Roosters. But I liked him there. I thought he was energetic the entire game. It didn't look like he slowed down. It didn't seem like he dropped a beat at all. And he was the one who got that assist for the Shakai Mitchell try. Not that it was the smoothest ball to Shakai Mitchell, I'll admit. He kind of fell over and kind of just sort of lobbed it over to him, but it worked out. They got a try. He just is energetic. He's going to make his tackles. Like he brings something, not just as a 14, but as a hooker in general.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I think he's got some class. I think he's got some confidence off that New South Wales berth last year and things like that as well. He just definitely gone up another level. It definitely helps the Roosters this year while they're missing Brandon Smith, and the pressure is on to make sure Connor Watson does perform at that jersey. And so far off that game, and one final thing I love to see, and I know there's a lot of respect in this game and a lot of passion, as you mentioned, Jake, but they weren't afraid to go at each other. Like there was a couple of times where it bubbled over. There was quite physical. There was some big hits. They were in their face. There was a couple of push and shoves. And I actually love it because it shows how much it means. And if we weren't seeing that and it was just one of those big respectful things where sort of it was a friendly in a way, I don't think it would get people wouldn't get it. But I think everyone's watching it going, I get this. Even if that's not your background and you're just there watching the game, you're going, I'm loving it. I'm getting it. This is what it means. And people always say, like, you've got obviously your big status games of origins and playing for your country and stuff like that. And we see how big it is for like Tonga, New Zealand, all that sort of how it means. But watching the ceremonies and stuff last night, watching the ladies do the dance for the Maoris after that game as well, like just seeing that culture, I absolutely love it. I love both cultures. I really, really love the Maori culture. I've been a huge fan of it. And it just shows you how much it does mean. And great touch for the women as well when they were doing their dance and honoured that lady that did pass away. Sorry, mental blank on the name, guys. I don't mean to be disrespectful there. But it was just a great night of footy. And I'm really glad that it's there and it is what it is.
Yep. No, 100%. Look, like I said to you, I enjoyed it a lot. It wasn't about the polish in that game. It was about the passion. It was sloppy as. Like I don't think they scored in the first half. They didn't score in the first half at all. It was like the last.
No,
it was the third quarter, like 5 minutes in or something. To be fair, it was a great try by Shakai Mitchell. Like that little reach out, like props. It was pretty good. I think he's only scored one try in the NRL, so he scored one in the All-Stars game. It's pretty cool.
And one thing I tell the Tigers, if they can get Brent Naden back and just keep that Indigenous jersey on him, he'll be Dally M Player of the Year. He was absolutely sensational last night, and
what
that
a chase down
he did, and he was just on fire last night. There has been reports all off season. There was talk that he was going to be basically gone from the club, but apparently he's been absolutely tearing it up at training. And I know we hear this about so many players, but apparently there is big word on Naden, and I don't know if he'll get a starting spot at the Tigers to start the year, but goodness me, if they get some injuries and they can have him play, and he's in that mind frame that he can get into sometimes where he has shown in glimpses, whether it's at the Panthers and stuff, he can play. He's a player, and last night showed for me that maybe that's what he needed last year and all those rooms to come out. And maybe he's gone to himself, I've got it good here. I need to make sure I turn up and put my best foot forward, because that was a hell of a showing.
Did he win one with the Panthers, or did he win two?
I think he was there for the
first
one, but yeah, I think he was there for the first one.
Yeah, so that's another, like, it's somebody who actually forgot the Tigers even had, to be completely honest with you. I thought, I might know if I thought he retired or not. I knew that he had played for the Tigers, and I knew that he sort of fizzled out. I don't know why I thought he wasn't still there, but look, if he can replicate the form that he had last night, then that's an absolute threat to have as an extra center there. Because you know how hard he can run, you know that he can tackle, and that chase down he did was brilliant. So, look, he kind of just put his hand up to be like, I know it wasn't a trial match, but it kind of was for him. Like, that's a bit of a trial, sort of saying like, "Hey, Benji, I'm still here. Like, I want in this squad."
Yeah, no, I agree. That's it, guys. Hope you've enjoyed it. Let us know your opinions on anything that we've spoken about, whether it's on the podcast, whether it's on YouTube comments. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe. It goes a long way of helping support us, support the page, and helping us grow as well, further reach and things like that. Every time you get a like, that's how it all works now. You all know that. Social media, make sure you do give us a like and a follow. Reminder, the first person that sends us through rating our podcast will go in and we'll get that to a double pass to our Magic Round event on the Saturday, 11 to 2 p.m. at the Velveteen Rabbit. Cannot wait for it. Fast forward, please, to Magic Round. I'm pumped for it. Jake, thank you. Great weekend of football. It's only going to get better from here on in. There's going to be a lot stronger lineups next week with players playing for longer minutes. Plenty to talk about once again, I'm sure. Tuesday night, let you all know what's happening. So we'll have our ladder prediction podcast, talk about anything that's come up in the news as well over the last couple of days, plus into the next couple of days. And then the Wednesday Supercoach show, it's our big one. We've teased it a couple of times. It's that big potty show. So every player that has not much percentage-wise that could churn your teams around, we will be talking about. So a huge show coming up. So can't wait to give it to you all. See you all during the week for sure. And I think we are 1 week away from our live show on the Tuesday starting. So make sure you're ready for that. Make sure you follow on Facebook and YouTube, because you'll get the notification when we do go live, but more about that during the week. Good night, Jake, and good night to everyone out there. I'm going to go pick a draft side, so wish me luck.